In the second part of lesson 1.2, we're going to focus on setting up a simple checking or savings account and how to use it properly. And also, we want you to understand the basic banking transactions and specifically how to balance your checkbook. So first of all, you guys want to find the right bank or credit union. Questions you want to ask is, what services are provided? Are they going to give you ATMs, checks, credit cards? What fees are they going to charge? Understand that banks are a business. They're going to try to make money, and that is sometimes off of fees. So you want to find the right balance of service and fees for the bank that suits your needs best. All right, they'll charge you for a minimum balance sometimes. In other words, you got to keep the account over $500 or more. Sometimes they'll charge you a monthly fee no matter what. Sometimes they'll charge you ATM fees depending on which ATMs you use. So you want to be real careful about those fees. Obviously, you want to figure out what type of account you need, personal account, checking account. If you're starting a business, you might want to have a separate business account. And you definitely want to ask them what's free. We're all interested in what's free. Ask them if they can give you free checking or free printed checks. They do cost money unless you ask, and sometimes you can demand that they give them to you for free, but it depends on how much money you have in the bank. All right, we'd like free online access. Some banks will even charge for that. You'd like to get statements for free, but more and more, as they print and mail statements, they're charging for that. And more people are going online with their statements anyway. So hopefully that's free if it's online. You definitely want to know what interest rate you're going to earn. Right now, interest rates are very low, but still you can earn some money with the dollars that you deposit there. And you definitely want to be protected against overdraft checks. In other words, if you wrote a check for more money than you had in your account due to the timing of a paycheck or timing of another check, nobody wants to get in the checkout stand here and be declined right in front of everybody and hold up the line. So make sure you have overdraft protection if they'll give it to you. All right, when you open your account, all you need is a photo ID with signature. Sometimes a school ID will do if you're a college student or a high school student. You typically will need a social security or taxpayer ID number, proof of address, either from a utility bill if you have one or some other proof of address, and they'll want to make a a signature card for you because they want to know what your signature actually looks like to prevent forgery. So be very careful about this. It's easy to forge things. More and more crimes are happening online, and so you want to protect your PIN numbers and that type of thing, but also want to make sure your signature can't be faked. Savings accounts and checking accounts have a lot of similarities, but they're both a safe place to put money, but they have some differences too. Savings account will typically pay a little bit more. You have some options for CDs or certificates of deposit. You typically have some money market funds that you can deposit your money in, and those are safe. They pay a slightly higher interest rate. In a savings account, it's sometimes harder to get to the money, so it is sometimes less likely that you'll spend it, and that can be a good thing, right? This may include fees depending on how much money you have in the account. Checking accounts, it's more accessible, pays a little bit less interest, but you can write checks. You can make debit card purchases and make withdrawals whenever you want on these to get money out. If the money's available though, you may spend it more easily. It's kind of like having cash readily available. If it's not available, you're less likely to spend it. You can also have monthly fees here, but later in this lesson, as you'll see, there's a video of these two girls arguing about checking versus savings. It's kind of funny. Hope you watch it. But anyway, checks are obviously something that are kind of going away because more and more commerce is taking place online through PayPal and through e-commerce and through debit card exchanges virtually. Still, you want to know how to write checks because a lot of business is still done by check. Okay, so first of all, who is the check made out to? Only Verizon can cash this check when it's written to them. All right, and it goes typically against a debit card or goes against your checking account there. You also want to know how to use an ATM for these types of things because obviously that's where a lot of transactions are made, deposits and withdrawals, and not as many people are going in to see the teller anymore. Okay, so when you get this debit card for your checking account, make sure you get a Visa or MasterCard logo on it. That means you can spend money at any business that accepts Visa or MasterCard. Even though it's a debit card, you have to have the money up front with a debit card. You can't just buy things on credit. But the Visa logo and the Visa guarantee adds a lot of value and gives you a lot of flexibility should you need it for a purchase or for an emergency or both. All right. Protect these things with your PIN, your personal ID number, and we know some students don't worry about these things, but you really do want to make sure you keep that secure. Don't put it on the card, of course. Don't keep the PIN in the wallet. I wouldn't even keep it in your phone. If somebody were to steal all your stuff, your backpack, steal your car, something like that, and they could somehow get into your phone or into your wallet where you had your PIN written down, they can go out and withdraw a whole bunch of money. So pay close attention to your transactions, because most banks are doing a much better job with cybercrime and people who steal your 16-digit number here and are making purchases that you're not making, but you want to keep a close eye on it. Cybercrime is definitely increasing, and you want to call your bank. On the back of this card is usually a 1-800 number or a toll-free number. Call them as soon as possible to make sure you don't get charged for something you didn't purchase. Okay? Remember that your debit card's not a credit card, right? You have to have the money in your account before you can purchase it. So that has some advantages too. Prevents you from getting into credit card debt. All right. Anyway, understand that withdrawals are money taken out of your account, deposits are money put in. And that's how things are done, typically at the ATM or through a teller. All right, now how to write a check. This may seem silly, but you probably have to do this at some point. So first of all, make sure you put the exact calendar date. You can't backdate a check. In other words, I can't write a date from the past and then assume that it was written at that time. Make sure you pay close attention to the check number here. All right, write out the full name legibly of who it's being paid to, whether it's a business or a person, right? This person is the payee. Write the check amount, the dollar amount for the check in numbers here. This one's kind of sloppy, but make sure you include that decimal point. If that's not clear, someone could easily write in a couple zeros there, but that's what this line is for. Line number 4 says you have to write it in words. Typically, $26.45 would be written as 26 and 45 hundredths of a dollar. And then I'd put this line here to make sure that nobody else fills in anything else here on this line. Take up the whole line so nobody can write something in. These two things, both the words here on number 4 and the numbers here on number 3, have to agree. Okay, so it's a system of checks and balances, no pun intended, to make sure it's the dollar amount is correct. If somebody tried to move this decimal place and make it for $2,645, that's why we have this written out in words. Okay, right on the memo line here who it's for. That'll help you because you can view an electronic copy of this check. Some people insist that the check copy be mailed to them. That's expensive. Make sure you sign it and it checks with your signature that you have on file with the bank. Okay, make sure you record the check in your register, and make sure you always do it in ink. Don't sign blank checks. Anyone can fill in the numbers to do that. And if you make a mistake on the check, don't try to correct it. Just write the big letters void, V-O-I-D, across the entire check, or shred it, or both. And make sure you write in your check register that check number 608 was voided. All right, how do you keep track of your account in your checkbook? Well, first of all, you got to make sure you have the balance forward from the last statement. In other words, from my last statement, if I had $310.40, I make sure that's the beginning balance of my next statement, of my next period. Okay, whether you do this monthly or you do it quarterly or you only do it, twice a year, I don't recommend that, but make sure you bring that balance forward from the last page of your previous period. Record your expenditures or expenses as debits. Notice these have a big subtraction mark there, and you're going to subtract them from your balance. So notice over here, okay, these numbers will be subtracted. We'll go over them in a minute. Your deposits here are your credits. Okay, that's good. That's money being added to your account. Okay, and at the very end, you're going to add credits and subtract debits for each new balance. So when I add the credits, here's the only one I have. Notice that I took my existing balance here, $197.93, plus the $160 that I added to my account. Notice credits are added right here, and that means $197.93 plus $160 gives me $357.93, and then I can start subtracting again as I spend. Okay, so you got to be careful with this. These just look like a big column of numbers. Make sure you understand exactly how these are being subtracted and added. Right? Next up would be subtract all the debits. Well, here's one. My beginning balance was $310.40. Subtract $58.20 because it's here in the debit column or the payment column. So $310.40 minus $58.20 gives me $252.20. That's where this comes from. Next one is $14.85. I take the existing balance, the line right above it, $252.20, subtract 1485, and I get 237.35. And I would do it again for this grocery bill here, 39.42. I do it again for ABC Lumber, but I think you get the idea. But you've got to be real careful. Notice there aren't pluses and minuses here. I would put them in actually, but you got to make sure you're not adding expenses or subtracting your deposits. It's very critical you pay close attention to these green and red columns. Okay. At the very end, make sure that you keep close track of your money. Don't write a check for $350 when you only have $312 in the account here, because if you do bounce a check, you got to pay not only the full amount, you got to pay penalties. You might have to pay some penalties to the person to whom you wrote the check. So that gets very expensive very fast. Okay, so keep track. All right, if you go to this Wells Fargo hands-on banking, okay, you can actually copy this URL and find Wells Fargo banking here. And it actually is pretty cool because they'll take you around with this thing here and they'll show you what checks look like. You can even go through the whole module. I can go to the next one here and they give me a little click and drag thing where I actually write things down here with my signature and I can put these things in the right spot. It's not a bad module. They also do one for how your bank register works. They'll explain to you. Notice the words change over here on the right. Okay, every time I move this old magnifying glass around, it tells you how this check register works so you can balance your check, your checking account. They have one for ATM cards and debit cards as well. This explains to you what all these things mean. This verification code on the back is very important. Only give that out to trusted vendors. But there's a lot of things you can do here to pay close attention to your accounts here. All right. So we hope that that helps you. We want to make sure that everybody here is getting these objectives down well and understanding your banking account. So we hope that helps. So get a bank account, manage it carefully, manage it properly, and make sure you do it accurately.